acceleration. Okay, sorry about that. I think I had some technology glitch in there, and apologies, everyone. And so welcome to Eco Innovation Center, where we incubate and accelerate ideas in 5 core areas. And we're talking areas of civic tech. We're looking at areas around healthcare, renewable energy. We're looking at market access. We're looking at agriculture. And people who use technology to scale in these areas remain the areas of our interest and focus. And in Eco Innovation Center, I think in the last 6 years thereabout, we've been privileged to bring this webinar to you. And today, incidentally, happens to be the 107th webinar that we're bringing to you. And in the past 106 episodes of TechBiz, we've had subject matter experts, we've had people with who are thought leaders in different areas of startup scale up and growing startup businesses come to speak to us on different topics, from investment readiness. They come to speak to us on things like you know, how to use the business model canvas, how to scale your businesses, how to have partnership agreements, how to you know, make sure, you know, proprietariness, how do you manage your intellectual property. And so if you've not been a part of this before, and this is your first time, I will advise that take time off and later on, I'm going to look at the 106 webinars that we have recorded on the site. And my colleagues are dropping the link in the chat, www.ecoicenter.com/webinar, and you will find it there. And please feel free to just go through it and see, and I can assure that it will help you on your journey of entrepreneurship. And should you have questions, clarifications, things you would like to also know afterwards, I mean, my colleagues will also drop the link for the TechBiz forum on WhatsApp or on Telegram, where myself and so many other subject matter experts around the conversation around startups and technology scaling are available. And it's so we can continue to give you an ongoing support around your work and how you scale and how you build your ventures. And today again happens to be an exciting day in which we also are bringing TechBiz to you. And thanks for constantly and always keeping a date with us on TechBiz. And today's topic is quite interesting and quite exciting. It's about growth hacking. And there's, if you're unable to hack the growth, you're unable to create that accelerated growth, then you lose that credibility as a startup, because startups are companies that leverage technology to be able to scale their businesses significantly. And today we're talking about hyper-growth hacking, where we have the subject matter expert who's going to be teaching about strategies to scale your startups rapidly, which is what is expected from startups. And what we expect is that by implementing a combination of growth hacking techniques, data-driven decision-making, and customer-centric approaches, we believe startups can accelerate their growth trajectory and achieve sustainable success in competitive markets, such as we have in here, okay? And our guest speaker today will share practical insights and hacks for financial growth. The goal is to empower startups with knowledge and tools to navigate challenges and achieve sustainable growth. He will explore various tactics and approaches that startups can adopt to achieve hypergrowth, focusing on efficient resource utilization, customer acquisition, and sustainable scaling. And so who is our guest today is the managing partner at QI Velocity Venture Capital. an AI investor and focuses on impact-driven companies that improve people's welfare, economy, and environment. With almost 10 years of experience as a serial entrepreneur and an emerging fund manager, he has co-founded and led several ventures in the fields of innovation, market development, talent recruitment, and technology acceleration. Working with global and diverse partners across various industries and sectors, he has built his career in entrepreneurship and venture capital as a specialist in bootstrapping companies from zero to more than 6 figures in revenue in just weeks. And this is the reputation that he brings to the table. In addition to venture capital investing, he also provides his expertise to companies as an investor relations executive on all areas of the capital market and as a head of Silicon Valley Syndicate Club in Los Angeles chapter as a New York VC. He specializes in co-investment opportunities for private investors to join deals with well-known VCs such as SoftBank, Samsung Ventures, BlackRock, Henderson Horowitz, and Founders Fund. He's passionate about solving unmet needs with emerging technologies, creating technology success stories, and advancing global society forward for the greater good. He's a public speaker and an author, a San Diego Business Journal 40 under 40 honoree, and a U.S. Marine veteran with 10 years of honorable decorated service on active duty and 4 combat tours. He is currently pursuing his MBA of Finance at Harvard University and holds a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Law and Psychology from Park University and a Military Leadership and Strategy certificate from Marine Corps University. And again, I am sure everyone who's listening to his profile know that we have another subject matter expert with us in the house. Paul, you're welcome. Thank you for honoring to be with us today and to share your wealth of experience on how startups can be able to hypergrow their businesses and as to share these strategies with them. Thank you very much, Paul, for joining us. You have the floor now.
Hey, appreciate the introduction and thank you for having me here. So, yeah, you've pretty much covered every ingredient of what makes me me. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and kind of hit on some things that I want to talk about regarding myself, and then we'll get into the presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here.
That'd be great.
Give me a second. Okay. Can you see my screen?
We can see it well. Thank you so much.
Great. Yeah, so today's title of the webinar, Hypergrowth Hacking, Strategies to Scale Your Startup. After today's webinar, if you would like to connect with me, the best way to reach me and find me on Twitter or LinkedIn, which are the social medias I use, or to contact me via phone or email would be on my CV site, which is there at the bottom right of the screen, paulclaxton.io. So what we're going to cover today, first, we're going to reiterate some things about myself, kind of how I think, and what my protocol in terms of how I think, how that has helped me be a successful entrepreneur and venture capitalist. Then we're going to talk about the current market climate, and then we're going to lead in AI and why AI is relevant no matter what type of entrepreneur you are today. And then we're going to go into scalable thinking in terms of, how do you bootstrap, right? You always need to have a bootstrapper's mentality, whether you raise capital or not. And then we're going to talk about actually raising capital. Okay. So about me, just to reiterate on some points that you hit on. Yes, U.S. Marine. I do other things to kind of contribute and add more of a well-rounded point to my professional career. So I like to blog. I write for some top leading industry platforms. I have a couple of podcasts as well. One on the capital markets and investing in technology, and another one kind of specifically more geared towards just technology itself, which is called Explainable AI. And the other podcast is called Capital Unscripted. Additionally, I consider myself not just an entrepreneur, but a humanitarian. Everything I do has an underlying purpose to either serve the man or woman next to me or the community at large as a whole, all for the greater good and advancing our society forward and improving people's lives. Yes, I am a former competitive athlete. I used to back in my heyday, I used to competitively compete or competitively participate in powerlifting competitions. So I did that for quite some time. Additionally, I was a marathon runner. I don't do that anymore quite to that extreme, but I still do place a lot of importance on my physical health and making sure that my physical performance is up to par. So other things that I do, I contribute on LinkedIn to their expert articles and top voice sections. And that's kind of what makes me me. I like just ultimately serving the community, and I believe in mind, body, soul performance. I'm heavily involved and immersed within the AI field. I do some ambassador work for AI Accelerator Institute. Like I said, I have the podcast. I've done some endorsements for well-written or bestseller AI books. And ultimately, I like to embrace failure. I believe that true learning and true progress comes from failure. It comes from, going through the school of hard knocks. We don't learn so much from our successes, but we really learn by getting dirty, getting immersed into the process of seeing what is it really going to take to achieve this dream? What is it really going to take to achieve my goals? Can I withstand getting punched in the face? And can I keep going forward? So that's kind of what makes me me. These are some photos, real life photos of me. I am a real person. I am not a deep fake. Here in the top left corner, that's me and my girlfriend. There's some photos there of me in the Marine Corps. The bottom left photo is one of my favorites. That's when I hiked to the summit of El Cajon Mountain in San Diego. The middle photo with the group of individuals there, that is post-Iraq invasion in 2003. So we had the United States had invaded Iraq in 2003 and toppled Saddam's regime, and I was a part of that. And so that's us getting ready to go back to the States in Kuwait after a successful operation in the Middle East and Iraq there. In the far right, top left corner of the far right collage is me powerlifting. That's almost 500, that's about 485 pounds I have that I'm deadlifting there. And the other ones are just photos of me in the Marine Corps. So thought I'd share those. All right, let's go into current market climate. So today's current market climate, the game has changed. We live in an AI economy. That means that everything around us has a potential applicability to AI, to either computer vision or a large language model. It's all around us. So AI is kind of like the new internet, right? So if you're an entrepreneur, you're running any type of business, if you don't have an AI strategy, you're going to be left behind. Kind of like during the dot-com bubble when the internet became more prevalent and we were moving from 2G to 3G and so forth. if you weren't embracing the internet, if your business didn't have a website, you would eventually be left behind. And that's the new industrial revolution that we're in now. So it's important to have a data strategy and to figure out how you're going to incorporate AI into your business. The other thing is valuations no longer hold the same value. In the early 2000s, when we experienced the dot-com bubble, a lot of businesses were just commercialization had taken on a new light. A lot of businesses were embracing the internet, and they were embracing e-commerce, and we could do business in ways that we had previously never done it before. The paper industry, for example, disintegrated essentially. And because people weren't printing anymore, right? And they weren't using paper, they were sending emails instead of sending letters. So it changed up the way that we do business, how quickly we can do business, and how efficiently we can do business. And because of that, a lot of businesses got value from those industrial technologies or industrial advancements, technological pursuits and advancements. And because they got value, they were able to develop, new products. They were able to produce new services, which increased their revenue, right? It created what we now have today as unicorns. It increased their revenue. It increased their market clout. And so investors saw that, and they were pouring money into these companies, and they continue pouring money into these companies for the better part of the first decade of the 21st century. And so that's kind of what created the term that we have today, which is unicorns, right? And that continued over the first decade, and then we have the 2008 market crash. And after the 2008 market crash, then we saw kind of the emergence of like SaaS applications and smartphones, and then that changed the way that business was done once again, because now you have all your music on your phone. Now you can do all your business from your phone, whereas we didn't have that before. We had faster internet speeds. So once again, we have investors pouring money into companies. We have social media, they're pouring money into companies. And once again, you have these last 10 years that have just been crazy valuations have taken place. Crazy valuations have emerged. And because of that, now we have more investors, right? Because we have these companies that are getting money poured into them. They're either exiting or getting acquired, and it's creating more millionaires and billionaires than we've ever seen before. But since COVID, that put a stop to all that, right? And so last year, we've seen a collapse of the banking industry, and we realized, wow, capitalism is like a supernova. We can't continue pouring money into companies and erroneously or falsely inflating the valuations of these companies when they don't have the infrastructure to back up those valuations. So because of that, it got super noisy. And now we're looking at, okay, how do we commercialize down to the individual level and stop inflating valuations and pouring money into companies where it's not warranted. So we have to commercialize at a much more kind of micro level versus a macro level. And that's what you see happening now. So a lot of companies are not getting as much funding, and because of that, exits and acquisitions will happen essentially more quickly. So it's not all bad. We have, e-commerce and available profit outlets for the economy and more reach, as well as the sharing economy and increasing innovation. And as a result, we have more investors, like I said. But it's super noisy, so we have to kind of figure out how to commercialize at the micro level. So it's time for a paradigm shift in how we're thinking. Because we have less money pouring into companies, we're gonna see less exits and so forth. Stories of startups that have raised VC funding tend to dominate financial headlines, but in reality, only about 5 to 10,000 businesses actually receive venture funding. So these are things to think about. The super economics of the 2000s and 2020s, we had widespread mobile and internet use. We had, again, the transition from 3G to 4G and 5G networks and e-commerce and commercialization. And really, it was China and kind of the US kind of driving this, right? So we can thank companies like Apple for setting the innovation precedent and the pace of move fast or be last type of mentality. AI is the new opportunity. It's everywhere. Where are you? So these are just some different applications of where kind of AI is expanding into. So we have things like AI inbox management features, AI-powered revenue suites, sickness fighting AI games, high bandwidth memory chips. So these are just some of the many AI applications that exist out there. So scalable thinking, how do you develop a unicorn mentality? You can take advantage of, have an opportunity mindset, take advantage of the fact that there are over 8 billion people in the world. Cast a wide net. One of my mentors told me before, when you're bootstrapping a company or growing a company, you need to have, a lot of opportunities. Most will fall through, and that's why you need to have a lot. So cast a wide net. It's kind of like an upside down pyramid. And as you begin to close deals or secure opportunities, then that kind of funnel gets more narrow, right? And then you can kind of niche yourself over time. Focus on customers. Your customers are your best bet. Your investors are your customers. And by that, I mean, a lot of people spend time kind of, pursuing investors, and not working on their business. But that's not a way to grow a business. You want to focus on your customers, because at the end of the day, revenue is revenue. And if you don't have customers, then you're really not going to attract investors. And a lot of companies that say like Samsung or any of the larger enterprise companies, they have corporate venture arms anyways. So if you focus on kind of your customers, eventually, investors will hear about you, and they'll kind of want to look at what you're doing, and you won't have to pursue them. But raising capital is most certainly a full-time job. So you definitely don't want to be pitching investors all day, because they're the first thing that they're going to ask is, what does your revenue look like? They're going to ask you about your metrics. What's your cost of customer acquisition, things like that. So especially if you don't have like a full-fledged investor relations team, if you don't understand SEC laws, which we'll talk about, if you don't understand things like that, if you don't have the infrastructure or the manpower to handle it, the staff to handle it, then you're really not going to be successful, pitching investors. So again, focus on your customers, and the investors will come. Kind of like that saying, if you build it, they will come. Focus on problems, not the solutions. A lot of people are focusing on solutions. How can I bring my solution to market? But what they should be focusing on is the problem itself, not the solution. So, in other words, like look at any pervasive issue in the business community, in society, that people are dealing with. It could be a disease, it could be pollution, and you can look in that and you can say, okay, what are the struggles? You know, what are the problems that this causes for people? How does it hold people back? You know, how does it stop them or kind of, you know, diminish the quality in their life? And then look at ways that maybe you can solve that, right? So you don't want to focus on the solution or the product itself, because then that's taking your attention off of the actual problem. So you don't want to focus on the solution or a product, but the problem. Advisors, it's good to have advisors in your business, but you want to remember that, like, you know, most advisors, they have a lifespan, or they're limited within kind of the capacity which they can serve, right? So you might have like a technical advisor, but they're not really going to know sales or marketing, right? Additionally, their knowledge may be limited to a certain field or a certain geography. So it's good to have advisors, but you also want to have them giving you, you know, advice within kind of and taking it with a grain of salt. So by that aspect, you know, you really have to think about, okay, how do I take this advice and make it my own, so to speak? You don't want to like take someone's advice and then just run with it without thinking, but you really need to say, okay, now what does this mean in different contexts? What does it mean for my business? What does it mean for my customers? That's how you take advice. So ultimately, the best advice is going to be really looking at your business, and then you know, looking at how different customers react to your business, looking at you know, kind of what trends are happening in the market, and then taking that. There's advice all around us. So, you know, if you look at different things that are happening in the market, you know, look how different aspects of the economy are performing, what's happening in elections, then you can take that in and you can kind of form your own advice. So you don't need advisors to tell you that. Develop mutually inclusive partnership driven models. What I've seen in the past is a lot of times partnerships don't work, channel partners, because you'll have a, say, company A and company B, and they'll say, hey, you know, sell my services and I'll sell yours. But that doesn't really work because it's not personable, right? So what you could do is you could partner with companies and say, hey, you open up your customers, I'll open up my customers to you, and we'll cross sell like that. You're serving the same customer, right? So say, for example, company A and company B are serving real estate sector. They're serving the real estate sector, but company A provides marketing services and company B provides maybe software engineering services. The services don't conflict, but they serve the same customer. You can partner like that, and it's not a conflict of interest. So when you open up the customer base, then you have twice as many customers. You're serving the same customer. And then know your customer, KYC. So company A and company B both knows each other's customers, and they're able to refer the other company services or sell the other company services. Hey, I provide software engineering services. I know my customer. I know they need marketing services. I can go to my partner over here and bring them in, right? And that's a good way to kind of cross-channel sell and make money at it at the same time. So say company B is selling their software engineering services. They bundle in the marketing services on top. Maybe they take a cut of that. Or if you flip it around, they sell their software engineering services to the other company, right? To the marketing services company. And say, for example, every sale they make, right, So if their services cost $10,000 a month, for every sale they make, they give 10% of that back to the marketing company, right? And the marketing company is making money for free. Essentially, all they had to do was open up the doors to their customers. So that's kind of like a cool little partnership, profit-driven model that makes money for each company, and neither company has to do any work. All they have to do is do what they already do in the first place, which is sell their own services. Let's see. So measure the business for replaceability and impact potential. What are the barriers to entry? What's the 15 to 20 year impact potential, right? How replaceable is the business? A good example is iPods. iPods were around for 6 or 7 years, and then smartphones took the place of iPods. So iPods only lasted, what, 6 or 7 years, and then they were no more, right? So long-term impact potential. Then they came out with these smartphones. So that's long-term 15 to 20 year impact potential. So you want to build a business that has that moat in the market, so to speak, that they have that authority in the market. But additionally, barriers to entry. Selling a cell phone is a high barrier to entry. You got to have manufacturing, you got to have the parts, you got to have distributors. Not only that, you got to have a phone that has progressive design features, right? Say for example, like Apple phones, they have progressive design features, which means that they have a flat structure that you can progressively build on top of. So the flat structure never changes with iPhones. You just progressively build on top of it. You take the same features and you just make them better. And that's what they've done year after year for the last like 20 years. Consider business model flexibility. Again, the market's going to change. So is your business model flexible? A good example could be, say, for example, maybe a bookstore, right? A bookstore is a flexible business model because you can have, say, before the internet, you could have a brick and mortar. Oh, the internet comes along. Now I can just put all my books online. So you can flex to that, right? Certain businesses, you can't really do that, right? So, is it adaptable to changes in the economy? Right? I can put the books online, e-commerce. I can sell audio or or electronic versions of the books. So there's a lot of different things you can do if you're in the book industry. Unicorns will be unicorns. Unicorn is an overused term, but remember, unicorns are going to be unicorns. So what does that mean? Well, unicorns are, they're going to have all this publicity around them, but that doesn't make them a unicorn. What makes a unicorn is how happy your customer is. I can give you an example. I rented a car on a car sharing app, and their customer service is horrible, but they've had almost $1 billion poured into the company. They're definitely a unicorn. Their valuation's well over $1 billion. But I can tell you one thing, their competitor in the industry just went out of business, and they were well funded. And I can tell you, because it's a low barrier to entry, I could do a mobile app right now, and I could get a car sharing app put together pretty quickly. It's a low barrier to entry. So I can tell you, because of that, it's competitive. They won't be around for long if they don't get their customer service together. So unicorns will be unicorns. Depends on what you make it. Grade your business for what I call the manipulation factor. So this means that long-term impact, if your business is going to be around for, say, 15, 20 years, you may not be making decisions in that business. You may sell the company, you may exit the company. Similar to the movie Terminator, when I think his name was Dyson, invents the machines, right? The Terminators, and then it ends up destroying the world. So when you sell your company or exit your company, who's going to get their hands on it, and what intentions do they have? Remember that when you're building technologies that could potentially you don't have a lot of collateral damage, either save the world or destroy the world. Learn about different types of investors and funding models. That's important because what the last few years have taught us is that because of COVID and the wars across the world, startups have significantly cut their burn rates. But because of that, we're in a rebound year. So the market has had time to kind of cool down, and now it's heating back up, and we're going towards a bull market, and the market is essentially poised for amazing growth, right? We're going to see things starting to go back up, and like I've talked before, exits are going to happen, I think, more quickly, particularly because companies are embracing AI, which is just it's really taking a lot of companies to a new level, and companies are saving a lot of money. So what do you need for global scale? You need a strong team. Technology is your business. Technology is a part of your business, but people are your business. Flexible business model, we talked about that. Be customer focused, not investor focused. Have an IP driven culture. So have an innovation, creation driven culture, and then partnership and relationship driven. I don't like buckets. I don't like the term startup. Startup implies that you're doing something that you're not familiar with. Generally, if you were smart enough and experienced enough to come up with an idea, then you're probably smart enough and experienced enough about the idea to go ahead, and implement it into a business. So if you obviously know what you're doing is what I'm saying. If you had the idea, then you obviously know what you're doing. You're the one that had the idea, right? So startup implies that like you don't know what you're doing, right? Running a business is not difficult. It's not difficult, right? Anybody can run a business. You have certain aspects of the business that need to be taken care of. Now, all you got to do is implement your idea into that, figure out who your customers are, and don't act like a startup. Don't do things that you shouldn't be doing, and do things that you should be doing, like managing your money properly, doing your taxes, things like that. So not spending too much money frivolously. That it's very simple things, right? Making sure that you're doing marketing, making sure that you're building your network and that you're not putting yourself into a lane, because that's what buckets do. So you need to kind of like redact or neutralize your conviction on everything, because buckets are designed to do exactly that. They're designed to contain you, right? So if you're building a company, you need to have an open mind, which leads me to the next: should I bootstrap or should I raise? As I said before, only about 5%, I think the previous slide was like 5% of startups actually successfully raise VC money. And I think after last year, it's going to be even less. So what kind of company do you want to run? You have to decide that. Do you want to run a company that becomes public, or do you want to continue running a private company? What are your goals? Do you want to exit? Do you want to sell? Do you want to merge? How do you look to kind of take the company from 1 million to 10 million to 100 million to $1 billion? Or do you even want to take it that far? It's a whole different matter running a $1 million company versus 10 million. It's different, 10 million to 100 million. You don't need to run a $100 million company or $1 billion company to have an exit, to be acquired, or to be very wealthy, or to make people's lives better. You don't have to have, this $1 billion unicorn company to be considered successful. So just think about those things. Determine if it's feasible to bootstrap. It may not be feasible to bootstrap. If you're manufacturing cars, it's probably not feasible to bootstrap. You're going to need some money from investors. And then think about, you know, the pros and cons of that. Think about also what your background is, whether you're bootstrapping or raising capital, because you have to understand yourself and what your tendencies are. For me, I like to bootstrap. That's what I've been doing the last several years, is take an idea, make money out of it, figure out how to monetize it. My tendencies are best suited towards bootstrapping. You know, I'm just more of that type of person. I'm very like, I don't want people in my business telling me what to do, and that's exactly what investors are going to tell you. They're going to tell you what to do, and they're going to be your confidant, but they're also going to tell you what to do, and they're going to very much so be a team member in your business. You won't be running the business on your own, right? But you know, again, that's, you know, there's an aspect to that, like, why, you know, what do you get out of that, right? Well, you get more money. You can probably get to you know, if you're trying to get to 100 million, you can probably get there a lot faster if you have massive amounts of capital injected. Additionally, investors are going to have a lot of resources for you that maybe you wouldn't have on your own. So that's why people go out and raise money. You know, inside the minds of founders and investors, there's risk all around us. So, and that's really our dilemma, is like, okay, we have to make money to get money, but we can't make the money without getting it first. So how do you get around that, right? Well, there's different ways. For example, I have a consulting agency. I can use my consulting agency with my skill set. I can use my consulting agency and go build another business using the revenues from one agency to go build. It happens all the time. Companies do it all the time. So my background is operations and sales, marketing, that type of stuff. So I can provide those services to maybe another business that needs it. I can provide my experience in investor relations, and I can use that revenue and feed it into another business and grow an entirely different business, which I've done before. So, you know, that's one way to get money when you don't have it, right? So the catch-22. I like this book. I think it's ironic that so you have this protagonist in World War II, and I think it's ironic that, you know, he had to realize how insane he was before he could actually fly. So he was sane enough to fly because he is sane enough to recognize his insanity. And entrepreneurship is a lot the same way. It's a lot like this guy flying a plane. It's like, you know, how do I get this business from point A to point B? Well, first thing is I have to be insane. You know, I have to do like things that most people aren't willing to do because it's painful or it hurts, you know, or I could embarrass myself. I have to do those things, and then I have to realize that, okay, I'm willing to do those things, and I have to recognize that I'm actually crazy enough to go and do this. So that's a mindset that you have to have, right? And so I like that book for specifically for metaphorical purposes. That's the way you kind of have to think, right, when you're building a business. So how to raise 7 figures. I actually raised over 7 figures last year for a couple of ventures. You can do it. So it all boils down to people. Like they say, the old adage says, your network determines your net worth. And it's very true. No matter how much technology we have, we can't do this without people. We can't do it with just machines. So consider different types of people that you might come across, right? So in any business, you're going to have the man or woman at the top, right? That could be the CEO and the COO. It could be a board member, etc. And then at different layers throughout the organizations, You're going to have people that are executors, which is doers. You're going to have ideas people. That's your innovation, your R&D. You're going to have helpers. Those could be like your administrative assistants, people like that, structures, chief operations officers, your protagonists. Those are your advocates. Those are your advisors. Those are the people, your channel partners, etc. Networkers. Those are your salespeople, marketers. You need each one of these. Some of these people are more than one. Some are just one. But think about each one of these characters. It's a fun way of thinking about it. Think about each one and go look for those people, because you need each of these types of characters in your business to be successful. So again, I want to hit on manipulation factors, right? So a good example is Ford Motor Company, been around for over 100 years, still doing well today. So that's a good example of a company that did well, right? They apply my concept of perpetual velocity. Blockbuster is a story of a company that did poorly. They were only around for maybe 30 or 40 years. And if you go in, the back part of any city, or, if you drive through some cities in America, you might see abandoned Blockbuster stores. So there are no more. I don't think there are any more left standing. So, why did they fail? We have to think about that. Well, you can use my concept, perpetual velocity, to kind of think about this, right? Which is kind of like the opposite of terminal velocity, but I put a spin on it. So essentially, you have 4 quadrants on the Cartesian coordinate system going counterclockwise, starting at 1 o'clock, and then you go counterclockwise 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So the upper quadrants are positive, right? So the Quadrant 2 is, in case you're unfamiliar with how a CCS system works, Quadrant 2 is positive, negative. And then Quadrant 3 is negative, negative, right? And so forth. You get it, right? And so, before a company is concepted, before it's concepted into thought, a company is essentially like pre-birth stage, so to speak, if you think about a company in terms of human life, right? And then at point 0, that's when the company is concepted and born, right? From there, that's where the life of the company begins, right? And x-axis being continuous time, right? Over time, the decisions that those people make in the company allows it to either go up or down, right? But either way, the more time that goes on, the larger that company gets, is like a bubble. That founder, those original stakeholders, get further and further removed. And either that bubble keeps getting bigger, or eventually that bubble pops. Like Blockbuster, a bubble popped, right? And so that's kind of like what perpetual velocity is. And what you can do is you can put parameters around this, right? You can plot different aspects of your company, different constant and constant factors and variable factors, and you can create linear lines of linear. What you can do is you can create kind of linear lines of probability, so to speak. Not necessarily always straight, but the ones that go through the lines that go through specific parameters, whether the line kind of helps you understand where your company is trending based on what parameters they may go through. So you plot them on the graph, and if they're going up over time, then that's a good thing. If they're going down, or if there's dips, then you might have some trouble, and specific parameters based on where the points are can give you insight into your company about what you need to work on or what you're doing well, and so forth. That's kind of my concept of perpetual velocity. We can talk about that more if you want to reach out to me. I can explain to you more how that works. These boots are made for scaling, how to bootstrap and survive. Why product market fit isn't the best fit? Because again, like I said before, you're focused on the product, you need to be focused on the problem. So what you need to do is put the product in the market and see if it fits. How do you do that? You focus on the problem first, right? So if you're constantly focused on the product, you're never focused on the problem. So you want to align the problem with opportunities in the market, or look for opportunities in the market, and find where there's potential problems, and look for various ways to solve it. Think about, problems that may cause issues for various groups of people. I call it problem market fit. So are you trying to solve a problem in a way that fits the market, right? So for example, Minnesota or Alaska or Canada versus Florida or Texas, two different climates, right? So you could maybe innovate snow removal in northern North America, but it wouldn't be as relevant in southern North America because they don't get as much snow. So, is there really? Yes, the Texas does get snow, but it's not really a problem, right? Not like it would be in Minnesota or say Canada. So you're not really going to have opportunities. People aren't going to be excited about snow removal innovation in maybe Texas like they would in North America, right? And so look at the problems that exist. And there are problems with snow removal in, say, Minnesota, where I have lived before, because a lot of times streets don't get plowed. Sometimes they don't get plowed soon enough. Sometimes they're plowed improperly, and a whole list of other issues that go with snow removal. So that industry could be due for an inflection point. Consider your infrastructure. Again, running a business, all businesses are pretty much the same in terms of infrastructure. In other words, every business has a marketing sales function. Every business has a hiring function, HR administrative. Every business has a finance department, technology. You get it. And how do you fulfill those? You fulfill those with staff, advisors, partners, and programs. But how much infrastructure is too much? You don't want too much. You don't need an office if you're a startup and you're running a SaaS company. I know people that are starting companies and they're driving like $100,000 BMWs. Do you need that, or could you shed that extra cost and put that money into your business? Especially if you're bootstrapping. And you always need to have a bootstrapper's mentality, because whether you raise money or not, those investors are going to want you to run the company as lean as possible. And those investors are only putting money into your company to grow it, not to fix your problems, right? They want to increase your traction. So when you're thinking about what to spend money on, what decision to make in your business, consider these 4 questions. Will it help me achieve my goal? Will it help my customers achieve theirs? Does it save me time, make me money, or save me money? And in the long run, is it making the business harder or more difficult? And you can take a look at some common metrics. These are important. Investors will want you to have a handle on this. And so it's important to know your numbers, know your metrics, know the different types of funding models, what might be available to you, debt, convertible notes, safes, know the SEC laws, etc. So those things are important. And at the end of the day, execution is key. A lion doesn't hesitate. That's why they're a great predator. A lion doesn't think. He just obtains its prey because they execute, and that's why they're king. And that's how you need to be as an entrepreneur. You need to execute, and don't worry too much about failure, because you're going to fail. I promise you that. But it's how hopefully you preempt failure. Hopefully you bounce back from failure. A lion isn't always successful on their first hunt, but again, they execute, and they're not always successful on their first hunt. Sometimes they don't get that gazelle, so they got to take a breather and recollect their thoughts and reposition, re-strategize. And running a business is a lot like the same way. Additionally, one last thing that I want to capitalize on is SEC laws. There are several SEC laws that you should be familiar with, starting with 506 Regulation D, and then the Securities Act of 1933. You need to be familiar with those. All these can be found online at the SEC website. So just be familiar with Securities Act 1933 and Security Exchange Act of 1934, 506 Regulation D, 504 Regulation, and 506C. Be familiar with those, and then the Investment Advisors Act of 1940, as well as anti-fraud prevention. So, in closing, just remember, when you're out raising capital or growing and scaling your company, take for example Amazon or Elon Musk or any of these well-known entrepreneurs. They're not talking about all the money that they made. They made plenty of money, but what they're talking about and what their investors are talking about is how they changed the world. So that's what you should be focused on when you're growing and bootstrapping a company, or trying to get investment for your company, is how ultimately you're going to change the world and make the world a better place around you. So if there's any questions, you can feel free to ask. Otherwise, the best way to reach me is via, I would say probably via WhatsApp, at 213-676-9423, +1 area code for the US. I've got my email addresses on there, and then my curriculum vitae website. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. I'll check the chat now.
Thank you so much, Paul. And I think that was just explosive. And I just had to let you keep reeling that out, because very strong fundamental truths about growth. It's about, hey, first it's people. These things are important. You need to have people in the technology finally enhances health. I think again maybe speaks to your background as an ex-Marine. I like the precision and the emphasis around execution. I like the candor around. You come in to the field, you will fail. Be prepared for that. Be prepared for the challenges, and then you can come back up. And I think this has been an amazing session. And for everybody who is on the call, from wherever and across all the platforms, thank you for being a part of this. And I think this must have been a great session coming from Paul, who comes with a packload of expertise and experience around growth hacking and around raising funds for our startups, which again is needed now much more than ever. And again, I'm sure they'll be dropping the questions. For those of you who are on the platform, just drop your questions in the chat. We'll try and take 1 or 2, because we know we're already on top of the hour. We'll take 1 or 2 questions from him, and then we'll call it a day. But again, let's see if there's any question here. Are there any potential pitfalls or mistakes to avoid when scaling a startup based on experience? What do you think? This is a question. Are there pitfalls to escape, things you will advise or guide against, from your toolkit when scaling? What are the pitfalls I should avoid? That comes to you.
What, can you repeat that question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think from the chat, it came from one of the platforms. Are there any potential pitfalls or mistakes to avoid when scaling a startup based on your experience? Mistakes and pitfalls to avoid.
So I would say the first one is hiring the wrong people or working with the wrong people. That's probably been, oh geez, that's probably been like, my biggest obstacle. So I'll say a couple of things. So people can be your greatest asset or your greatest liability. What I mean by that is you can't run a business without people. And they can be a huge, tremendous asset. My partners that I work with, Kelly O'Hara and then Alex Akpata are two of my main partners, huge assets. But I've had some people whom I won't mention that have just been like laying on a bed of thorns. It's like every day I have to deal with them. So
yeah, I get it.
I would say over time, it's not necessarily something that you can learn right away in terms of reading people in business, but over time, you just have to be persistent and learn how to read people in business, and you'll get better at it the more you deal with people. And networking can help with that. But again, just having the right people on board is huge. The other thing is don't run your business off of hypotheticals. I see it all the time. Startups come to me, if we just get like 1% of the market, or we've got investors that are gonna put money into our company. I'm like, right, do you have a term sheet? Have they put the money into the company yet? And they never put the money in, so you're relying on blue sky. You're looking at blue sky, and you're living in a dream. What's the only thing that you can count on in terms of finances, money, is what's in your bank account. And until then, it doesn't even matter. I've even had deals go through where like the people like tried to get I had a deal go through like within 2 days, and then 2 days later the people are like trying to get the money back. Like, the contract, we haven't even started the work. Why are you trying to get the money back? Like, you just signed like 2 days ago. So
these are the realities.
even if you do close the deal and the money is in your bank account, it's still not over. Like, because people try to, they'll try to take some kind of legal protocol or some kind of legal recourse to get their money back because they're not happy or they had a change of heart or something. So nothing in business is ever certain.
True.
Yeah,
I agree with you, and I think it can be more concise than that. And again, that summarizes most of what you said. It's about talent, it's about people, it's about the technology is an enabler, but the processes and the people you just can't do without, and all the rest will fall into place. And I like it. Again, it's about the mindset. Are you crazy enough to want to be an entrepreneur? The first thing is you need to be crazy enough to want to run a startup for you to make that decision. If your heart is not there, your mind is not there, every other thing is going to fall into pieces because it gets as tough as it is. I know I see so many questions coming in, but again, we just have to call it a day in here. How do you measure success while scaling our startups? What are the metrics? If you look at a few of his presentations, which we'll make available. So again, thank you so much. I feel highly honored to have you in here, Paul. Huge experience around funding, scaling businesses, startups, ex-vet, and ex-Marine. And again, it's to say, we're honored to have him on our platform today, and we don't want to keep it any longer. For those who came late, who are just joining, this recording We'll join all the other recordings, and I think by 12 noon tomorrow, it will already be on our site, and my colleagues are dropping the link, www.ecoicenter/webinar. You will find the whole recording, the questions, the slides. I'm sure the presentation also will show as you run through that. Feel free, and if you do have any question, my colleagues also drop a link in the chat room that takes you to our Techbiz Nation, which is a group of about 3,000 people where we offer support to each other, working in the startup space, providing that hand holding that we need on a day-to-day basis, where you can bounce things off, because this journey also can get very lonely. So those are two structures we provided that support you after this particular session. But again, we must just say, call it then. Thank you. And again, this is coming from Eco Innovation Center, where we're passionate about helping startups scale. And helping startups be able to fulfill their mandate of creating impact, changing our world, and making our world a better place. We're located here in the city of Lagos, the startup capital of Africa, and we like the fact that the work we're doing reverberates across the world, and we're more than excited to have so many partners partner with us as we seek to change the world. I mean, one of our programs coming up is MACHAC, a marketing and media hackathon, where we intend to see people doing things around the world of AI and around the world of technology, changing marketing and media, and it will be exciting to see quite a lot of us turning to that. My colleague also will drop the link for the registration. You want to participate, you want to be a mentor, you want to be a coach, you want to be a sponsor, you will see it in that link. But again, my time is up and I need to move. And thank you for being a part of Techbiz. I remain Victor Benga Folabi, the founder of Eco Innovation Center, saying thank you for keeping the day with us. And I look forward to hosting you on the last Thursday of March, where we'll bring you another amazing episode of Techbiz, bring you somebody that is phenomenal and comes with a huge lot of experience. Thank you very much, everyone, and do have a great evening. Thank you.